Hey everyone, welcome to What Are the Odds? I am your host, Robert Ferringo of docsports. Unfortunately, my trusty sidekick, Raphael Esparza, is not able to be with me, so you guys are stuck with me today. Me and only me. But this is good. We can talk man to man here. We can talk about all the football stuff that Raphael doesn't want to talk about, but that I feel like needs to be said and that we need to get into. Now, before we get into today's show, I do want to mention down in the description down there is our handy dandy free 60 link. Be sure to click on that to go over to docsports to use that $60 that we are offering you free. You are welcome. You can use that towards anything on the site, any handicapper, any sport, any package. Yes, that free 60 can be used towards football packages, which are currently available at our early bird price of $750. That's the lowest price that it will be available to. And I'm not sure how long that early bird package is. I'll check that out for next week and let you know. But I figured it out the other day because I'm doing some promo stuff. It actually works out to be about $27 a week for the entire season. If you sign up for the early bird package now, with obviously the Hall of Fame game coming next weekend, football's here. Like, it's back. It's starting. So it's time to, cement your place on the docsports team and set yourself up for a really fun and very profitable fall and winter campaign. Also, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We have a saying around here on the docsports YouTube channel that if you don't hit the like button, you are doomed to lose all of your bets for that day. So like and subscribe. If you subscribe, you will get alerts to all of the free play videos, all of the other football related videos. We got WNBA, we got CFL, we got every sport that you're into. And we have 13 handicappers all doing a variety of very interesting and unique stuff. So be sure to check that out as well. So, okay, we're talking football here today. So I'm in football mode. I am entering the cave. I'm entering my football gambling cave that I will not come out for the next 7 months. So I'm fired up for this season, which starts, as I mentioned, with the Hall of Fame game next Thursday. So today's show, I'm going to break down into two parts, basically. The first part is college football championship odds to win the national championship. What's a good bet? What's a bad bet? And where the value is. And I'm going to warn you ahead of time. You're probably not going to love what I have to say about this, about college football futures betting in general. But that's going to be the first part of it. Then the second part of it, we're going to look at some NFL futures numbers. Now, again, these aren't like free picks or plays or anything. I'll give you a free futures pick at the end of this, give you something for your time. I'm a big, strong believer in that. But these aren't futures picks that I'm going to say. These are just the 5 numbers that I found the most interesting and that jumped out at me based on historical context, based on expectations, based on public perception versus what the number is. These are the 5 numbers that I think are the most intriguing for this year. So college football first, NFL second. Here we go. Okay, so college football odds to win the national championship. Heading into the season, we all know Texas is the favorite, right? They're the number one team. They're at plus 550 to win the national championship, followed by Georgia and Ohio State. Ironically enough, Texas and Ohio State play each other in week 1. Ohio State and Georgia are both plus 650 to win the national title this year. And, I mentioned that Texas-Ohio State game. This is what's nice about having the football playoff system and actually crowning a champion, is that 10 or 15 years ago, the loser of that game, they wouldn't be totally eliminated from national championship competition or contention, but it'd be pretty close. They'd pretty much have to run the table and blow out everyone else in their respective conferences the rest of the way. So it's nice that we have a playoff because now teams will play big non-conference early season games like that, because Texas and Ohio State know, okay, if we lose, we still have a chance. Clemson got run out of the building by Georgia last year. They still made the playoffs and had themselves a nice season. All right, Penn State, which is a team that is getting a lot of buzz. That I bet if you ask people not what the odds were, but who they think is going to win the national championship, everybody's saying Penn State. Okay, because Phil Steele picked them to win the national championship. Colin Cowherd, like a lot of media people are like, it's Penn State's year. Following the who could argue with it logic of, well, Michigan won it 2 years ago and Ohio State won it last year, so we're going to go right back to the Big Ten, because that's 100% how college football works. But it is a little bit interesting that the public sentiment probably has, and certainly the media sentiment has, Penn State as the favorite to win the national championship. But they're only fourth in the odds at plus 750. So a little bit of a disconnect between public expectation and what the odds makers are putting up on the board. Okay, now, again, this is also where I remind you that these odds aren't predictions by the sports books. They're not saying who they think is going to win the national championship. They're not staking a claim on Texas. They're just trying to drive action and minimize long-term liabilities. That's why you'll see these numbers move. It's based on betting. It's based on where money is coming in. So the books aren't making a projection here. They're not all in on Texas. Very much the opposite. They'll be very happy, I bet, if Texas doesn't win the national championship, because they're number one in terms of overall handle at the Las Vegas Sportsbook so far, and Ohio State's number two. All right, then after Penn State at fourth at plus 750, we got Alabama plus 1,100, Oregon plus 1,100, Clemson plus 1,200, Notre Dame plus 1,400. Okay, that's that second tier group right there, where people expect them to make the playoffs, and once you're in the playoffs, you have a shot. Okay. Then after that, we're starting to get into long shot range with LSU plus 1,700, Miami plus 3,600, Michigan plus 3,600, Florida plus 3,600, Texas A&M plus 3,600, and Ole Miss plus 4,600. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams from the SEC listed here. Okay. So again, just to show you how ridiculous some of these odds are and the expectations, they just know everyone's SEC crazy here. So there's no way that 6 teams from the SEC are going to make the playoffs. So some of these teams that are favored or among the favorites to win the national championship aren't even going to make the playoffs. There's the disconnect. And this is what brings me to my point. Okay. Making a futures bet on who's going to win the national championship in college football is one of the dumbest bets that anyone can make. Okay, and I get it. Maybe it's your alma mater. Maybe it's your favorite team from when you were 5 years old, and you just want to throw $50, $100 down on your school, your team. I can't argue with that. That's a nostalgia thing. That's an emotional connection thing that you can't reason with that when it comes to fandom. Fan is short for fanatic. So I'm not trying to reason with you. I'm trying to speak to the people who look at sports betting strictly as a money-making enterprise, like I do. Okay, those people that think they're sharp, want to be good bettors, want to turn a profit and make money. This is a very simple lesson, but you should never, ever, 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 pretty much under any circumstances, make a futures bet on the team to win the national championship. And here's why. It's one simple reason. It's not that I hate the type of bet or anything like that. It's just the math. It's always just math. Right on my insiders page at docsports. Gambling isn't magic. It's mathematics. The mathematics do not support ever making this wager. Okay, so to understand why this is a bad bet, you got to understand kind of the math of what winning the national championship basically entails. Now, let's throw out regular season performance, which is big. As I mentioned, 6 of those top, 15 teams from the SEC, 4 of them aren't going to make the playoffs. Maybe 3 of them aren't going to make the playoffs. That's regulars because of their regular season performance, because they're going to go 7-5 or something like that, right? Let's ignore that aspect of it and just focus on what you have to do to make the playoffs and win the national championship. Basically, you have to do one of 2 things. Either make the playoff as an at-large team, go 10-2, be competitive in the Big Ten or SEC or something like that. But then once you're in, you have to win 4 straight games. 4 straight games if you make it as an at-large team, if you're one of those teams that plays that opening weekend, okay? If you're one of the top-tier teams, one of the teams that gets the bye, well, you probably won your conference championship game. Okay, so let's count that as 1 game. And then you only have to win 3 playoff games. But the point is the same, right? Like, you still have to win 4 big-time games at the end of the season to be crowned the national championship. Either win your conference championship game and then win 3 playoff games, or make it as an at-large team and then win 4 straight playoff games. Okay, so setting aside everything that you have to accomplish just to put yourself in those positions, let's just look at that, at winning the playoffs. So if you have to win 4 straight games, essentially what you're betting is that this team is capable of winning a 4-team parlay, right? They got to win 4 straight games, just like you would have to do to win a 4-team parlay. Well, 4-team parlays typically pay out about 11-1. Some books 10-1, some books 12-1, but they're in that range, right? 10 to 14-1. We'll call it 12-1 on a 4-team parlay. And that's just you betting, against the spread, minus 110 juice, 4 teams, boom, ring it up. Now, parlays are their own special breed of stupid. I'll handle that at other times. Again, I told you, I'm not the fun guy. I get it. But for me, winning is fun. Making money is fun. Being successful as a professional bettor and handicapper is fun. And I've been doing this every day as long as I've been a handicapper, since the summer of 2006. So for 20 straight years, I've been doing this. So for me, the money is the fun, not the action. I'm not a adrenaline junkie juice kind of bettor. So I'm talking to the people that just want to make money, right? So 12-1 on a 4-team parlay. Now let's go back and look at those odds. Texas plus 550, Georgia plus 650, Ohio State plus 650, and Penn State at plus 750. The 4 favorites to win the national championship this year, and their numbers don't even cover a 14 parlay payout. Let's throw in Alabama, Clemson, Oregon right there, because all of them are plus 1,200 or below, 12-1 or below. So the top 7 teams, the 7 teams most likely to win the national championship, their odds do not reflect the true difficulty of the task at hand that they have to do. Your odds are better just playing a random 4-team parlay on a college football Saturday, which I don't recommend doing, but I'm just showing you what the numbers are versus putting $1,000 on Georgia to win the national championship, or $500 on Georgia or Ohio State to win the national championship. That's a terrible bet relative to the payout, because you could take that $500 or $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is you want to bet on the team to win the national championship and just bet it on a regular 4-team parlay. And it's more immediate. You don't have your money locked up for 7 months at the sports book on that futures ticket. Okay. So now let's get into also the history of the odds of the teams that won the national championship. So Texas is the favorite, the preseason favorite at plus 550. Over the last 23 years, that's how far back my numbers go to 2002, the reliable numbers that I have. There have been 3 teams in 23 years that were the preseason favorites that actually won the national championship. It was USC in 2004, Alabama in 2017, Georgia in 2022. That was it. Doesn't bode well for Texas, the team that, as I mentioned, is overwhelmingly is the most bet team at sportsbooks right now to win the national championship. Okay, kind of a red flag right there. Now, let's talk about long shots. Okay, we got down to Ole Miss at plus 4,600. Do you really think Ole Miss is going to win the national championship? Lane Kiffin strike you as the national championship kind of guy? They started last season with a better team inside the top 10, and they didn't make the playoffs. But they're plus 4,600. So is there a long shot out there? Okay. Well, over the last 23 years, there's only been 6 teams that have won the national championship at a payout greater than the 12-1 we have already established is kind of the baseline, right? Like 4-team parlay pays out 12-1. So anything less than 12-1 on the payout to win the national championship, you're already at a value disadvantage, right? You're already negative in your value. So throwing those out. So how many times has someone beat the odds, beat the numbers, been a bigger payout than that 4-team parlay? And again, I understand that it didn't used to be a playoff system or whatever, but at that point, you had to basically go undefeated or only lose 1 game. So still comparable in terms of like level of difficulty. 6 teams in 23 years won the national championship at greater than 12-1 odds. 2002 Buckeyes 19-1. 2003 USC, so it happened in back-to-back years. 2010 Auburn, the Cam Newton team. 2014 Ohio State, that was JT Barrett, he got hurt. Cardale Jones, Ezekiel Elliott kind of carried them. 2013 Florida State at 16-1. And LSU in 2019, Joe Burrow, 33-1. So 6 times the bet has been more than the value and has paid out. Let's be honest. You really want to start digging around at, plus 5,000, plus 6,000 teams to win the national championship this year? Is that you're kind of throwing darts at that point, don't you think? And that would only kind of make sense if you did that every year on 1 or 2 teams over 20 years and just got lucky once and hit a 45-1 or 50-1 like Auburn was in 2010. So it's a bad bet. It's just a bad bet any way you slice it. And the sports books love it. God, they love it. And that's why you see articles written, videos made about, talking heads on ESPN and Fox Sports and stuff like that, talking about the odds to win the national championship when they're released, heading into the season. They get a lot of run, right? Because people do want to talk about that kind of stuff. But all that's doing is bilking square and public bettors into making a wager that makes no mathematical sense. There is no planet that betting on the team to win the national championship is worth your time, money, or effort. Okay, so just don't do it. So again, I know it's not exciting. I know that's not what you came here for. You probably came here expecting me to give you the inside track on who's going to win the national championship in college football. I don't know. I'm not a fortune teller. I don't have my crystal ball here. That's not what I do. I read numbers and I understand the math. So I'm trying to explain to you why the mathematics suggest never, ever, 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 ever put money down to win the national championship. And frankly, the same thing goes towards Heisman betting odds and odds to win the Super Bowl. Again, I know, man, everybody has that one story or that one friend or that knew that one guy that had a ticket on a team to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. I get it. Those are fun stories. But the numbers don't suggest it. It doesn't make any sense. So you should never, ever, ever do it. Okay? I'm going to be writing an article about this at docsports, and I'm going to post the odds of the last 23 national champions. And you can see for yourself, 2020, Alabama, plus 300. Clemson, plus 400. 2016, Clemson, plus 700. Alabama, plus 700. Just a lot of teams that didn't make a lot of people money, frankly. Okay, and for every guy that had that 2015 Alabama national championship ticket at plus 700, I guarantee you that same guy has bet twice as much on Alabama to win the national championship every year since. Okay, so that guy's been taking a bath the last 4 years. So any money he did win then, he has more than lost since then. So it is a bad bet. Don't bet college football champions' future. So, okay, so that's part one. So now let's shift gears and let's go to NFL futures betting. Just some win totals. Again, what are the odds? Here at this show, what we like to talk about is what numbers interest us, how numbers are set, why numbers are set, numbers that jump out at us, money lines, spreads, totals, things that catch our eye when we're looking at the board. So as I've been scouring the board, and yes, I already do have my 8-unit futures play set and ready. I will release that in probably another 3 weeks. I'm very excited about that. That's in college football. I've been doing a lot of digging on totals as I've been gearing up for the season. So here are 5 NFL totals that have jumped out at me, and I'm going to deep dive on them a little bit. The very first one, the first number that jumped off the board at me when I'm looking at totals is the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, 8.5 wins is their number. Why is that interesting? Okay, the Vikings are, I think they're terribly interesting because of the J.J. McCarthy situation. They have one of the best rosters in football, all of that. But why are they only at 8.5? That's what you got to ask yourself. Natural reaction for the public would be over. Over. They went 14-3 last year. Not only did they not really lose anybody other than Sam Darnold, who they already had an in-house replacement for, but they actually picked up a bunch of guys in free agency. You can argue that they have a better roster right now this July than they did last July. and 14-3. And if they beat Detroit in the last game of the regular season, they're the number 1 seed in the NFC. So 8.5, really? That big a drop? Yeah. Yeah, that big a drop. And we don't have to go that far back in history to understand why this is a good number and why this could be kind of a sucker bet. Okay. All we have to do is go back to 2022 and the Minnesota Vikings. That's right. You remember that year? They had a 9.5 season win total going into the season. They won 13 games. They went 13-3 with Kirk Cousins. He was cooking that year. That was Kirk at his best. Just nonsensical win after nonsensical win after last second win. I think they went like 10-1 or something like ridiculous like that year in games decided by 6 points or less. They had that crazy win in Buffalo where they converted the 4th and 21 where he threw it up to Justin Jefferson and they came back to beat the Bills on their own. Just dream season. Okay, they win 13 games that year. 2023, bringing everybody back, bringing Cousins back, bringing Justin Jefferson back, full defense back. 8.5. That was their season win total the next season after they won 13 games. And you know what happened? You remember what happened to that 2023 Vikings team? They won 7 games. That was it. Now, yes, last year they bounced back against a similar 8.5 number, and they won 14 games. And they whooped up on. Actually, they were 7.5 last year. What am I saying? Right around 7.5, 8 last year. And they whooped that number. Won 14 games. Okay? But it's like it's history repeating itself. Just like they had that unbelievable 2022 season and then came back to earth in 2023. I think this number is a little bit of a red flag. It's kind of baiting you to bet on the over based on what they were last year instead of looking at the underlying reasons. They were 8-0. They were undefeated in close games last year. They beat their Pythagorean win total by 3 games, meaning they were a lot closer to being an 11-6 team than they were a 14-3 team based on production. They were plus 12 in turnovers. They had good injury luck. Everything that could have broke their way last year, just like it did in 2022. This is what's really interesting about this number and about what they did last year is Minnesota went into the season last year. And actually, now that I think about it, I have that wrong. I think their season win total was 6.5 or 7 last year because they beat their season win total by 8 full games. They beat Las Vegas. They beat the number that Vegas put out for them by 8 full games. That is, in the 25 years that I've been tracking season win totals, that is the most that any team. Yeah, it was 6.5. 6.5 was their number last year. That 8 games that they beat their total by, that is the biggest win against Vegas, against the Vegas season win total this century. Okay. The only other team with a larger spread between expectations and what they did was the 2013 Houston Texans, but that was going the other way. Okay. Their number was 10.5 to start the season, and they won 2 games. So they missed by 9 games going the other way. But in terms of beating expectations, they beat expectations by 8 full wins to get over their number. It's the most this century. There has only been 4 other teams this century that have beaten their Vegas win total by 7 games. Okay. The 2008 Falcons, that was Matt Ryan's rookie year. They went over 8.5 the following year. Okay. In fact, Matt Ryan went 5-0 against Vegas his first 5 years at the helm. So the 2008 Falcons were huge overachievers. The 2009 Falcons had an 8.5 number, just like the Vikings do this year, and they went over. Okay. So 1 for the over. 2015, the Panthers. That was a team that went 15-1. Okay, went to the Super Bowl. They had a number of 8.5 that year when they won 15 games. And then the next year they had 8.5 as their win total again. Team goes to the Super Bowl, wins 15 regular season games. Come back the next year, they only had a season win total of 8.5. They only won 6 games. They went way under. So we got 1 over, 1 under for these massive outliers, right? Next is a 2016 Raiders. That was a Derek Carr year where he pretty much could have been an MVP that year. Put them on his back and carried them to 12-4 in the playoffs. That was against a 5.5 win total. They won 12 games. Next year, Vegas pegged them at 9.5. It wasn't even close. True Raider fashion, they come back to reality and they go under. The other team that beat their Vegas season win total by 7 games was the 2022 Bengals. Okay? They actually beat their number the next year too. Joe Burrow is just that good. He's that dude. And actually, that might have been the Jake Browning year too, where Jake Browning played out of his mind. But they went 9-8 the next year against a 6.5 win total, and they went over. So we have these 4 outliers that beat Vegas's expectation by 7 games. 2 of them went over next year. 2 of them went under the next year. But then there's that Houston team that I mentioned. That was also a massive outlier like last year's Vikings. You would expect them, after missing by 9 games the next year, okay, true regression would have them go over their win total. And that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they did. They went over a 7.5 total. They won 2 games the next year. Vegas posted their season win total at 7.5. Where you probably would have been expecting at that time 5.5, 6, still a bad team, worst team in the NFL one year, low total the next. No, it was 7.5, and it went under. So 3 out of 5 times, not a great track record. There's some outliers. So what are these Vikings going to do this year against that 8.5 total? Real interesting number that a team that won 14 games last year is only set at 8.5. Okay, second team. I'm not going to dive as deeply into all of these, but the second number that jumped out at me was, plug your ears, Lenny. We've talked about this before on this show and others, but the Detroit Lions, best team in football last year during the regular season, unquestionably. 15 wins last year, 15-2, best team in the best division in football. And yes, they lost some assistant coaches. But you remember, the thing that jumps out at me about the Lions last year was not just how dominant they were and how good they were during the regular season. They had the worst injury luck of any team in the NFL, right? If they had stayed fully healthy all of last year, what would they have been able to do? So you get a lot of those guys like Hutchinson back this year, and you would expect them to have a little bit better injury luck this year. But their season win total is only 10.5. This is the team with the 5th best odds to win the Super Bowl and the 2nd best odds to win the NFC. Season win total only 10.5. Again, red flag, flashing to me right now at 10.5. But the reasons why are very, very basic. Okay, they're baiting you into taking that over with the Lions, expecting them that they were so close last year, number 1 seed, still have that Super Bowl window open. Maybe, and maybe they do. The Lions aren't going to fall off a cliff. They're still a really good football team. But this is a little bit of a red flag because it's baiting you on the over, despite the fact that the Lions have one of the most difficult schedules in football. Now, they have some other numbers that are pointing towards regression. Their turnovers, they were 6-2 in close games, beat their Pythagorean expectation by 2 full wins, which is a big number. But their schedule this year is out of control. Really, really difficult. They are crossing over with the AFC North, which is always one of the best divisions in football. That means Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati coming down. You get the free win against the Browns. But you have to go to Baltimore and to Cincinnati. So they have to play the 2 best teams in that division on the road. Also playing against the NFC East, not a pushover division. Super Bowl champions, by the way, reside there, Philadelphia. The other team that made the NFC Championship and beat you in the playoffs, Washington, also there. Decent Dallas team, whatever you think of Dallas. Mediocre Dallas team, not a pushover, not an easy game like that Cleveland game. The Giants are, okay? And then the Lions still play in the best division in football. The North was out of control good against other divisions last year and is still loaded. Even probably the worst team, the Bears, have an 8.5 season win total and are a pretty good team right now. So Detroit's schedule, you really have to factor in on top of all those other those regression metrics for the Lions. So when you see that 10.5 number, there's going to be a lot of square bettors and a lot of, Nuevo Lions fans being like, they won 15 last year. They win 12 games this year, right? They should win 12 games this year. That's what the books are counting on, is that type of mentality. So That Lions number is another very, very interesting one to me. All right, third, we're going to go into the AFC, and we're going to talk Jacksonville Jaguars. Their number is sitting at 7.5. The Jaguars shouldn't be interesting to anyone. This is a bad organization, bad team. They've been irrelevant for all but 15 minutes of their entire existence, right? But the reason that this number jumped out at me is because unlike most people, like, to be a good bettor, you have to have a long memory, okay? And it really wasn't even that long ago. It was 2 years ago that the Jaguars had a 9.5 season win total, and they were a trendy Super Bowl pick. You remember that? Like, that's a real thing that really happened, is that 2 years ago, people were picking the Jacksonville Jaguars to win the AFC. They were the trendy, sexy pick out of the AFC. And then they just went and were the Jaguars, and they went under their season win total. And then last year, they were getting more playoff buzz, no Super Bowl buzz after everybody got burned in 2023. But heading into last season, they were expected to compete and be right there with Houston. Was Houston a one-year fluke? Was Jacksonville gonna take control of that division in the AFC South the end last year? Their number was 8.5. Not even close. Not even close. They only won 4 games. They jagged it up again last year, right? They have gone under against their season win total 6 out of 7 years. And their number dropped again to 7.5. So that's natural. That's normal, right? After a lot of people have been burned the last 2 years, 6 out of the last 7 years. But this is the 3rd straight year that Jacksonville's number has dropped. And I have serious questions over whether they are a worse team. Like, are they worse this year? They got a new coach, have a new draft class, made some free agent moves, had a lot of high picks in the top 10 of the draft the last 5 or 6 years. Those guys are now kind of entering their primes. Is this the worst Jacksonville team that we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years? Because it's the lowest season win total number they've had in the last 3 or 4 years. So this one feels like an overcorrection to me. And I think Jacksonville is going to be a team to watch this year relative to this number. All right, let me blast through these last 2. The next is the New England Patriots at 8.5. Okay, I have New England at number 22 in my preseason power rankings, but they're the buzz team, right? How I mentioned the Jaguars were the sexy team a couple of years ago. I feel like New England's everyone's sexy team this year. Like, everybody's on that Patriots bandwagon. Oh, they got Vrabel. He turned over half the roster. You know, the Patriots, they've dominated for 2 decades. They can't be that far off, right? I don't know, man. This team was pretty bad last year as well. And their season win total has dropped 3 straight years. 9.5 to 7.5 to 6.5. Gone under all 3 of those, by the way. And now we spike up 2 full wins to 8.5 with a lot of turnover, with a lot of change, with a second-year quarterback that, God, I think Drake May won 1 game last year where he attempted over 20 passes. Is that right? Something like that. Like, everybody's on Drake May. He's the second coming. Remember when Mac Jones was the second coming? Because that wasn't that long ago either. I still think that there's some questions about Drake May. Add in the fact that this is just like a very public number right now. All anyone has to say are these glowing things about the New England Patriots, and that's how push this number up. It's a big jump in season win total odds in the NFL. A lot of these numbers that I've tracked over the last 25 years, pretty static. Teams will go up one win either way based on how they did the year before. But a 2-win jump from a team that couldn't clear the bar on 6.5 wins last year, jumping up to 8.5 wins, that's one that jumped out at me. They're the one really bad team from last year that saw a big spike in their number. And I am wondering if it is an overcorrection on them. And then the final team that I'm going to talk about, and I'll talk about them a little bit more later, so I don't want to deep dive too much into them, but a number that jumped out at me, and I did my NFC East preview on this team. I did a full deep dive with the guys from Strike Point Sports, so you can watch those if you want to see a little bit more what we think about this team. The Dallas Cowboys at 7.5. Nobody likes Cowboys this year. I get it. And nobody likes the Cowboys in general. No one should like the Cowboys. Like, screw the Cowboys. Okay? I hate the Cowboys as much as you hate the Cowboys. I promise you that. This number still jumped off the board at me at 7.5. And I couldn't figure out why at first. And then I went back and looked. This is the lowest season win total for the Dallas Cowboys in 20 years. In 2005, their season win total was a flat 8. Books, they didn't tack on that extra half win the way as liberal and move the juice around the way that they did now. Just remember, gambling was illegal back then. Like there was as much for recreation and just sharp bettors in Vegas as it was public consumption. But in 2005, the Dallas Cowboys season win total was 8. That is the lowest season win total this year that they have had, was at 7.5 in 20 years. Public team. The books know they're going to get pounded with Cowboy money, with Cowboy over, Cowboy fans. They know that, and they are still posting this number at 7.5. Is that a good decision? I don't know. They feel like it is. They know they're going to get inundated with Cowboy money, Raider money. Those are the two things that the Vegas sports books know they are going to get hit with. 49er money as well. And that's a proximity thing. They know they're going to get hit on the Cowboys, and they have left that number at 7.5. So that's them flat out saying we think the Cowboys are going to stink. But the lowest number in 20 years. Is this the worst Cowboys team that they've had in 20 years? I don't think it is. I don't think this is the worst roster that Dallas has had in 20 years. They've had some 6-win teams. They've had some underachieving 8-8 teams. But this is the lowest number. So those are the numbers that I'm looking at, the hows and the whys of how they're set, giving you a little background into it. But Jacksonville at 7.5, Cowboys at 7.5, Patriots at 8.5, Lions at 10.5, Minnesota at 8.5. I think that those are the most interesting and intriguing season win total numbers on the NFL win total board. So that's it. That's it for today. I did say that I was going to give you a free pick. Don't think I forgot about that. Take the Giants under 5.5 wins. There is no way in hell that the Giants are winning 6 or more games this year. Again, another video on the Doc Sports YouTube channel, the New York Giants preview. Me and the Strike Point Sports guys, we give you 50 minutes of Giants talk. So I'm not going to go any further than that. I did promise you a free play, though. Gave you a free play. Lenny reminded me to remind you of that $60 link down in the description. That's $60 of free premium member picks at Doc Sports. Again, I have a 7-unit MLB play that I'm going to be ripping tomorrow, and you can get that for free using that. But that's it. That's it for today. This is What Are the Odds. We will be back next Friday at 2 o'clock. Raphael should be with me. Again, we will have more football. We are going to be a very football-centric show here moving forward towards the regular season. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me. Until next time, carpe diem and good luck.